everyone. I'm Mayor Beverly H. Burks, and this is Tuesday, March 25th, 2025, 7 p.m. It is the Clarkson City Council work session agenda. We'll go through roll call, starting with Vice Mayor Johnson. Present. Councilman Carroll.
Present.
Councilwoman Hood is not attending tonight. Councilwoman Bell.
Present.
Councilman Perkins.
Present.
Councilwoman Adu.
Present.
And would like to recognize our new city manager, Jacqueline Miller Thornton. Welcome. And also our interim city manager, who should be online, Tammy Sadler Jones. And so with that, I'll at this time entertain any motions for updates to the agenda.
I have a motion, Madam.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
I move to add a presentation under item 4, I think it would be 14, to discuss a proclamation for city,
Yes.
Georgia City.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to add to under presentations for E to discuss a proclamation designating Georgia City Week, April's Georgia City Week. 21st. Let's review it. April 21st through the. Okay, let's do it.
I move to add item 4E to under presentation, to discuss the proclamation designating April 21st to the 27th of 2025 as Georgia City.
Okay, all right, is there a second for that?
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded under 4E to add 4E to discuss a proclamation designating April 21st through the 25th, 2025 as Georgia City's Week. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. We'll now go into 3, which is public comments. Any member of the public may address questions or comments to the city council referencing only agenda items after the mayor and council have had the opportunity to discuss the agenda item. Each attendee will be allowed 3 minutes for comment. And we'll start with 4A, which is to discuss proclamation designating April as African American Women's History Month. And that would be with Yolanda McGee. Put it back on. Look for the green.
So should I start over? I do apologize. Okay. So this initiative builds on the legacy of pioneers like Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Ida B. Wells, Shirley Chisholm, and so many countless others, while also recognizing contemporary leaders in activism, literature, STEM, business, and more. Black Women History Month continues to grow in recognition, fostering greater awareness and appreciation of Black women's impact on society. It encourages both reflection on historical struggles and celebration of ongoing achievements, emphasizing the importance of representation and acknowledgement in all aspects of life.
Thank you, and we have the proclamation included in our packet. Is there any comments, questions? All right, hearing none, are there any from the public? Okay. Hearing none, can this item be consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And we'll proceed with item 4B, which is to discuss a proclamation designating April as National Arab American Heritage Month. Ms. McGee.
Arab American Heritage Month is an opportunity to educate the broader public about the diverse backgrounds of Arab Americans who trace their roots to 22 countries in the Middle East and North Africa. It also helps combat stereotypes, fosters inclusivity, and acknowledges the challenges Arab Americans have faced in U.S. history. Arab American Heritage Month is celebrated in April to recognize and honor the contributions of Arab Americans to U.S. society. The observance highlights the rich cultural, heritage, history, and achievements of Arab Americans across various fields, including politics, science, business, arts, and literature. In April 2021, President Joe Biden officially recognized Arab American Heritage Month, marking a significant milestone in its history. The U.S. Department of State and other federal agencies also acknowledged the month, further legitimizing its national importance. Since then, annual proclamations and events have reinforced its roles in celebrating Arab American heritage.
Thank you. And that proclamation is also included in our packet. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Any from the public? Can that be consent?
Yes.
Okay, consent. All right. Thank you, Ms. McGee. We'll now move on to item C, which is to discuss a proclamation designating May 11th through the 17th as Economic Development Week. And Mr. Edwards.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So the International Economic Development Council has designated the week of May 11th through 17th as the Economic Development Week across North America. And this effort is to recognize the vital role that economic development plays in creating a vibrant and prosperous community for the city. And as a little plug for an upcoming event, the city and the city's DDA is working with Decide DeKalb. So on May 13th, we will be having a Business 101 session here hosted by DeKalb County. And we're focusing on refugee and Black and African American business owners and providing them resources that the county and the city offer to those business owners. So that's my little plug. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And the proclamation is also included in the packet. Is there further discussion on this item? Hearing none. Is there from the public? Can this be consent? All right. We'll move on to the next item, which is item D, to present the upcoming stormwater infrastructure improvement project in the Market Walk and McLaren communities. And that will be Mr. Kaiser.
Good evening, Ms. Mayor, members of council, new city manager, Ms. Thornton. This can go on for a long time, but those in the audience said, please make it really short. So I'm gonna do my best to do so. So the pipe systems that we had about a month and a half ago, remember we went in and spent about $150,000 on replacing storm lines. So when we're out there, my staff as well as the contractor noticed that the pipes that were not being replaced, both upstream and downstream of what were being replaced, were also rusted out. And so instead of having a very large change order, we said, we'll address it at some future time. So we're going to put out a bid package that addresses this. I did want to also say that this development occurred in the 1980s by DeKalb County, permitted by DeKalb County. They did not have the developer put in aluminized corrugated metal pipe, which is coating on the pipe instead of just galvanized pipe, and they didn't use concrete pipe. They used uncoated pipe. So those last about 25 to 30 years. We are going to experience, and not to be the bearer of bad news, we are going to continue to experience in those two subdivisions requirements to replace pipe. It's coming. I see it. So in our capital program, our 6-year capital stormwater program, which I'm going to present to council in the April retreat, we'll have $50,000 a year for the next 6 years to go in and remove pipes as necessary. This is going to affect some of the same property owners we dealt with before. Some of the ones on McLaren. It's going to involve taking down fences, reinstalling fences. It's going to be one of those in the yard kind of activities. And so we were successful the last time we did 2 months ago with very few complaints, if any at all. And we're going to do the same thing again with the next contractor. So I just wanted to give you that update. And unfortunately, we're just going to have to face that in the subdivision in the next 5 to 10 years.
Any questions for this one? Thank you for providing that update. Anything from the public? Okay. You have a question? Yes, Councilwoman Bell.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser, for coming back. I just have a question. I know that we're gonna talk about it later on, but you mentioned a number of the $50,000 for maintenance. So is that enough for the next couple of years based off what potentially we're going to see? And where did you get that estimate from?
Yeah. So from us, we went out and looked at the number of pipes that remain, pipelines that remain. We have a stormwater inventory that we developed years ago. And so we have a good idea where most of the pipes are, not all, but most probably 90% of the locations of the existing pipes. And so we went in based upon what we saw 2 months ago and now estimate the number of length of pipe that had to be replaced over the next 6 years. So is 50,000 enough? It's not, it wouldn't be enough the first two bids, the one 2 months ago and this one coming up. This one coming up would be about $150,000. So we have enough flexibility in our work program over the next 6 years. When I present it to you at retreat in April, you'll see that where I have costs for various projects in each fiscal year. And I think we have a little flexibility in all those projects. In the event that we need to add more money to those two subdivisions, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none. Any from the public? Okay. And that was more for just presentation purposes. Thank you very much. And we'll go to E, which is to discuss a proclamation designating April 21st through the 25th, 2025 as Georgia Cities Week. And our new city manager, Miller Thornton.
Good evening. So as we are aware, Georgia Cities Week has been declared as April 21st through 27th, 2025. This is an important time to recognize the important role that's played by city government in the lives of our citizens, businesses, and stakeholders. We want to be able to join the other cities around Georgia in honoring the contribution that we make in the lives of our local residents and stakeholders.
We'll have the proclamation added, but are there any questions to this one? Any from the public? Consent?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on. There's no old business. We'll move to new business, which is to discuss a resolution awarding a service agreement to the most responsive and responsible bidder, Perez Planning and Design LLC, for the Park and Recreation Master Plan Services in the amount of $141,400 to be funded out of SPLOST 2, and that is Mr. Duncan.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, City Manager Gordon. I want to present to you the Perez Planning and Designing Group. We, a few months ago, put out an RFP for those who wanted to bid on our Parks Master Plan. We had about 12 companies who came out of that for that pre-bid meeting. And out of the pre-bid meeting, we had 4 companies that bidded for the contract. We selected the top 3. They made presentations. And then after evaluation, we selected Perez Planning and Designing Group. What Perez would do for our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, they would help us to create a vision, goals, missions, objectives, guiding principles, program recommendations, staffing, service and operations, park maintenance, and then they will cover everything on the our Parks and Recreation, which is Mountain Park, Friendship Forest, 40 Oaks, all of our pocket parks, the Women's Club, and the Sutton House. So I want to make sure we add the Sutton House to it. So just to go a little bit deeper, they're going to also help us to create development for possible recreation facilities, development for walking and bike trails that would connect our trails and our parks. And then possibly acquiring parkland that will help us to house our splash pad. We still have that on our project list. Some of the objectives that will come out of the park master plan that we will be doing community and staff engagements. And then they'll be working one-on-one with the council and city manager. So that will happen 3 times throughout the project. Perez Design Group has worked with cities of like Smyrna, South Fulton, Decatur, Norcross, Henry County, and Gwinnett. And they also work with cities on their trails, which was city of Tucker, North Lake, and Peachtree Creek. They also worked on the Atlanta Beltline, and then closer to home here, they worked on the city of Clarkston Greenway visibility study. So they are experienced. We're excited to hopefully be working with them. And then I also have on Carlos Perez, who is the owner of the company, to answer any questions that y'all might have of me or him.
Okay, thank you. And I got a couple questions on Live Council. Number one, did you include the property that is over by Public Works in that?
Right across the street. We did not, but
Okay,
we can. I wasn't sure if that was gonna fall on the park or not,
okay,
but we can add it to it.
okay. And then I noticed there was a parks board that was included in your presentation. How is that going to fit in terms of the selection of that board and everything else?
You were talking about the advisory board.
Mhm.
That was something that we were going to discuss throughout as we create the plan.
Okay,
That was something that we were hoping to create after the plan is created.
okay. And then I noticed in the bid, it was 138,000, but this is 141,000.
Yes, they forgot to add in, those were the meetings that we have with the council. They forgot to add in that portion, so it came up to 2,700, so we added that to it. So that brought it to the 141,400.
Okay, and council.
Well, that was my question, the increase, and you just answered that. But I know that the scope of work indicates that they would have 16 interviews with key stakeholders. Could we not have been part of that 16 to reduce that cost, or did they think it was in the best interest to have it separate? Because I'm just trying to figure out the 16 based off of what is in here as a
Yeah,
total.
and you can add, correct, because he indicated to me that that was left out of it, but it was part of the plan initially, but it was left out of the original total.
Okay.
So that's why we added it in there, but he can explain it better. than I
Hello, Mr. Perez. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Absolutely. You heard the question asked about, you included the interviews with the council, but we already had about 16 designated already. Could those have been included, the council included with those, or what was the justification for it?
So our strategy there is those 16 one-on-one interviews would be with council and then other focus groups in the community. But what we've learned through the years is that it's important in key milestones to have one-on-one interviews with Madam City Manager, Mayor, and City Council individually before we present to you as a body. And the idea there is to show you what we've come up with, no surprises, any input that you have we address, so that when we present to you as a body, then things are efficient and effective. And that we've learned is an important strategy to ensure that the project is ultimately adopted and approved by council. So that's in addition to, and we would meet with you at the completion of the needs assessment phase, and then again at the completion of the vision phase, and again at the completion of the project before we present to you as a body for adoption.
I have one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. My other question is the scope, the timeline scope, and this, I guess, Mr. Perez, you can answer this question for us as well. I know in the MOU or the agreement that we have before us, it doesn't have a start time because that's related on us in the vote, but how long do you think this is going to take? Because it looks like the contract doesn't end until December this year?
Yeah, so what we've learned too is that these processes take about 10 months for a city of your size, about 10 months to complete. So the idea, 8 to 10 months. So the idea is for us to finish by the end of this year. The hope is, should you approve the contract this evening, we'll start in April. One of the first things that we're going to give to Director Duncan is a very detailed scope that shows kickoff periods, submittal dates, review periods, public engagement meetings, et cetera. And then our task is to complete the project within that scope and that schedule, which we've done successfully with other communities, and so look forward to the opportunity of doing so.
All right, any other questions from the council? And just offhand, did you also include the property up at Brockett Triangle?
No.
Okay.
I didn't know about that property.
Okay.
That was a city project.
Yeah.
Is that something that we need?
I mean, I was just curious to see.
Yeah, I didn't
Okay.
know about it.
So just to that point, I think on paragraph 1.6 inventory and base value, it sounds like part of the project is going to be to inventory. Do we need to have a complete list of everything before the project starts? Or to me, reading the contract, it looks like that's going to be a part of the project, is identifying current spaces, potential spaces for future parks, things like that, that'll be a part of the plan. So
Right,
I don't know if
yes.
Mr. Duncan, Mr. President, is that?
Yeah,
I-
you
I
add
can-
them as well, but yeah, in my mind, that was something we were going to do prior to. So then that way, when you said including, if anything we did not include, then we can include it into the plan. So
Okay.
that was something I didn't know about, but we
No,
definitely.
that's
yeah.
fine. You mentioned some parks and some places, and
Right.
so that's all. That's why I just asked.
Yeah.
And if I could add one more thing to that too, I would look at it too as just any city-owned property as well, because we do have some lots that maybe aren't official parks now, and there's a little spot right behind the strip mall right over here with Biryani Point that we own, just kind of a little corner as well. There's also several other undeveloped lots in the city doesn't own.
Right. Yeah,
So
and
I
that
would
was the
think
purpose
broad,
of the,
you know.
yeah, that was the purpose of the inventory. So if we
Okay.
had to add anything to it, then we can do that.
Thanks, just wanted to make sure.
Good.
I just want to reiterate that as well. If there's anything that we need to add in terms of properties, you're absolutely right, Councilman. We can add that as part of the inventory phase. And even as we get into the visioning phase, right, there's always opportunities to consider other properties that may come out through the process, right, through the interviews and other analysis that we can add into the planning process as well.
Vice Mayor.
And with that being said, Mr. Perez, will that generate a difference in price or that will be factored in?
No,
If
it won't
you-
generate a difference in price. Absolutely not. No, it's part of the process. So
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the council? All right. From the public? All right. With that, we'll go ahead and add this to the agenda for next week, just overall discussion for that. Okay. All right. The next one is B, which is to discuss the request to purchase 2 new 2023 Ford Interceptors from Allen Viger Ford Lincoln Mercury, Inc., and the state contract 9999-001-SPD00083-0005 for the police department in the amount of $104,544 to be funded out of SPOS 2. Chief Hudson.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager Miller Thornton. We're requesting to purchase 2 2023 Ford Interceptors for our department. Currently, we have 14 marked patrol vehicles for 13 officers, which leaves us only 1 spare vehicle to account for any unexpected repairs. And by acquiring additional vehicles, we would ensure that we have a total of 3 spare vehicles available if multiple vehicles require service at the same time. So the cost for that is $104,544, which also includes a 6-year warranty for each vehicle.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Vice Mayor Johnson?
Chief, are all 14 of these vehicles right now, the 14 you do have?
13 of them are. We have one that's just a spare.
Okay. And this will give you the 4.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Councilwoman Bell?
So, Chief, on average, when there have been issues with other vehicles, at one particular time or situation, how many extra vehicles did you need in order to have the full staff for the 13?
Well, now that we're fully staffed, it's
Yay.
which is a
Right.
great thing, and we're really happy about that and excited about that. But there are times when some of our vehicles are down for over a week at a time, and it could be a couple. They do come, they'll pick them up and take them. We use 5-Star Ford located off of 78 Highway in Gwinnett County. They service our vehicles, and there are times when we've got 2 down. Yes, ma'am.
And with that warranty, and with that warranty that we do have, how fast is the turnaround for them to come pick it up, replace it? Do they give us a loaner?
No
No,
loaner
no,
car.
no.
No, ma'am.
Is there a special warranty for that?
No, I mean, then you're talking about having to get a whole new, a whole police car.
But it would have to be equipped and everything. You have to have all the, that'd be too hard.
Well,
It'd be nice.
any other question? The council, none. Any from the public? Okay. With this amount, we can just put it on the regular agenda, or
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
you mean versus the
consent.
consent?
Yeah.
Either one would be fine legally. I mean, it's a state contract, but it's up to you.
Okay. What's your pleasure? No.
Consent.
Consent? Okay, consent. Okay,
I
before,
have
we
a question. Does this also include retrofitting these vehicles with all of the equipment?
That's going to be on the
next
next
one.
agenda
next
item.
and we'll put this as consent, and as we'll transition over, thank you for that, Vice
Oh, I
Mayor.
see it.
We'll do D, which is to discuss a proposed variance, no, I'm sorry, C, to discuss the request to purchase the necessary equipment for 2 new 2023 Ford Interceptors from Dana Safety Supply State Contract GS-07F-05 I-2T in the amount of $36,674.88 to be funded out of SPOS 2. Chief.
Yes, this is to purchase the equipment that would go into both of the 2023 Ford Interceptors. The vehicle equipment is $18,337.44 per vehicle. That includes, the siren, everything that's inside a car, the cage, the back seat is all plastic, so it includes all that. We also added in there, in addition, the in-car camera price is $7,233 each per camera, and it's also part of the equipment to be purchased. This expenditure is within the spending authority of the city manager, and the funds would be coming from SPOS 2, but they don't require city council approval. But we wanted to put it in here to be transparent with y'all.
Any questions on this one? They need it, so, all right. Any questions from the public? Hearing none, can this be consent, council? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief. We'll move on to D, which is to discuss a proposed variance request from section 540A of the zoning ordinance to not require a 5-foot sidewalk along a local street at 3679 West Smith Street, Clarkston, Georgia, and it's 181190517. And Mr. Edwards.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So on this one, this was an older home that has since been demolished, and the applicant is currently going through the process to get a building permit to build a new single-family home along with an ADU there. And currently, they are requesting to not install the 5-foot sidewalk along 3679 West Smith Street. There are not any sidewalks on either side of the road, and the applicant is claiming that this is an unnecessary hardship on them. With this, though, staff is recommending denial of the proposed variance request because we do not find that it meets any of the variance criteria in the zoning code. And then the Planning Commission recommended approval of this request and recommended that City Council consider adopting a fee in lieu program for sidewalks. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor and council with any questions.
Okay.
I have a question about this. So
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, go ahead, Councilman.
it says here in the staff analysis report, the recommendation is approval. And it
Yes.
says that also in the background that it's approval, but then it says an agenda item that it's denial. So
Yeah.
why does it say approval in these two places and denial?
I think the wrong one was input here, but I'll work with the city clerk to make sure the correct one is input, because there were multiple versions of this, so I do apologize for that issue there.
So when you say the wrong one is the wrong one input in terms of the staff report, or the wrong one input in terms of the agenda itself?
Just the staff report. The recommendation from staff is denial.
So we'll make sure in terms of updating this, that will reflect that this was a denial from staff. However, the planning and zoning agree, and they want us to have some type of sidewalk funding program or something for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Councilwoman Bell.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Quick question, this fee in lieu of program, what is that and how would that work?
So the discussion at the Planning and Zoning Commission was something similar to the tree bank. Whereas if you don't want to put in and plant the trees, you can pay the city amount, then we can use that for trees in other parts of the city. So I think their idea to propose to you all was something similar to that for sidewalks. Because we do have a lot of older neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks, and it would take several decades to get every home in certain neighborhoods up to date with all sidewalks throughout the whole neighborhood.
And does the applicant know why those sidewalks are not there? To your point of their older neighborhood, there was nothing in code that required them to have it. But now, in order for them to become compliant, that is a requirement.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. So the new zoning code requires if anything over 50% of the assessed value is replaced, it does require you to come up to code for all compliance within all of the zoning code, including sidewalks if they're not there.
Any questions from the council?
No, I think I was gonna say, I think it makes more sense to do the sidewalks as part of a comprehensive plan than to just have patches put in here or there. Then the city can decide if tax dollar wise, it doesn't make sense to put a sidewalk in this whole street versus making the developer bear the cost of putting a sidewalk that's just marooned with no sidewalk on either side of it. So I think we need to think more about planning comprehensively the sidewalks and less than just requiring developers to just randomly put a patch of sidewalk that's not attached to anything else.
And to your point, I think that's why the planning board said in lieu of,
Right,
so
that
that,
makes sense to do it that way, because then you could comprehensively plan the sidewalks. So some streets, like this is a dead end street. If it's a dead end street with 6 single family homes on it, does that really make sense to spend tax dollars building a sidewalk on that particular street? Maybe not. I mean, maybe if there's a big apartment or something, then if it a lot of people, then it might make more sense. But with just 6 people, I don't know.
any other questions? Councilwoman Bell?
What if this in lieu of sidewalk program exists? What city?
So I did speak to our city engineer, Larry. He did state that the city of Atlanta has a similar program in place.
So how does it work? People propose stuff, we don't know how it's gonna do it.
How's it work? Just like the tree bank program. So what we do is we develop a cost for installing X square yards of concrete along the frontage. That number is it changes yearly because the cost of concrete goes up over time and labor. So we have a dollar amount per square yard of concrete. It changes every year. And if a contractor comes in or a builder comes in and says, this doesn't make any sense putting a sidewalk here, and then we come back to staff during the plan review process. We estimate the cost of that. They then issue a check to the sidewalk program, like the tree bank program, to the finance department, and it sits there for the city to use for a sidewalk project someplace within the right of way in the city, just like the tree bank program. So we catch these. There's about 4 of these the last year. And my recommendation during plan review is always Pecan Jolly makes no sense to put in sidewalks because it'll take decades to put in a sidewalk system on these single family homes. And it just doesn't make no sense. And so I think that's what Richard and I spoke about. What program exists out there? City of Atlanta has that. Actually, Gwinnett County also has it. And it works very well. Works very well, actually.
Yes. One last question. So if the applicant, Richard, is saying it's an undue hardship and burden for them to put the sidewalks in themselves, and then later what you're proposing is a program that already exists in 2 counties or a municipality, the city of Atlanta, and they're still paying for basically a sidewalk. So tell me, how does that make a difference as far as the hardship for the applicant?
Well, I think that language of a hardship is in the code. There is no hardship. There is no
You
hardship.
said it's one, we're gonna have one.
There is no hardship. Just like putting in trees, there's no hardship. So if a developer can't put X number of trees, recompense trees on a project site because the site's too small, all right, which is usually the case, it's not a hardship. They don't want to put all the recompense trees on their site because they can't, because it's too small. So they give us the money, get 2 nursery quotes, we average them, and the check goes to the tree bank program. With a sidewalk system, it's the same kind of thing. It's not a hardship, it just makes no sense logically. Because you have a sidewalk along 50-foot of frontage, and you have 1.5 miles of street that are old subdivisions with trees that are 100 years old. There's no way the city's going to knock down these trees and remove people's gardens in their front yard to put in sidewalks on the rest of the subdivision. Pecan, Jolly, Smith Street, you can name them all, and you'll never put sidewalks in those streets in our lifetime. And so why put in a sidewalk? So is that a hardship? No, it's logic is what it is. But it's still a requirement, right? Requirement is still put in sidewalks. So the way to get around that is you have a sidewalk in lieu of fee program, and you say contractor costs this amount of money. He writes a check and sends it to the finance department.
Okay, I got one more question, I'm sorry. The question is, will this program be set up before we move on it?
Mm-hmm.
But that is the hardship for all of us. Because we don't have a program to even consider. So then we only have 2 options. The other one will go back and start the process over, correct, Richard?
So I guess planning commission's recommendation was to approve this one, and then have that program put in place and approved by council at a meeting down the road. So essentially, this would be an approved variance for this applicant without having to pay the fee in lieu. However, it is your reference to deny that request or.
So let me step it back over here because I'm trying to make sure. You've denied it. The planning and zoning approved it, but they're saying there's a condition to the approval that in lieu of them not putting in the sidewalk, that we would create this program. Is there something legally in terms of saying if we wanted to make this a condition for the applicant that we can say down the road or whatever that they would have to do something with this in lieu of program, or how can we work that out logistically?
I think that making a condition that they have to pay money is kind of a dangerous area that I would not recommend going to. That could be presented by someone who's unhappy later as like an extraction. Plus, as Councilmember Bell pointed out, if their goal is to save money by not putting in the sidewalk and we make them pay the same amount, then they haven't really saved. I think that the program that has been described by Mr. Kaiser is perfectly legal, but it's not in our ordinance book yet. Right. So, I mean, I would recommend following the recommendation of Mr. Edwards that it doesn't meet the variance criteria.
Right.
And, perhaps if they are somewhere in their project and want to reapply after that other option is put in place, or that ordinance could say that this applies to building projects that have been approved within the last 6 months or something like that, we could maybe address it that way.
Okay.
And I had just one other thought I wanted to throw out there on the program idea. One potential complication would arise in locations where the right-of-way is not wide enough to accommodate a sidewalk. It should be, but I haven't gone out and measured all the right-of-ways. So what I'm envisioning is if the city wants to put a sidewalk in on a narrow right-of-way that doesn't have room for it, and rather than the owner / developer doing that voluntarily, the city is coming out and doing this project, then we would have to pay for that land. In the hypothetical situation that our right of way isn't already wide enough to accommodate the sidewalk.
Okay, so to that point, do we can take staff's recommendation into consideration, right? We can potentially have staff to look at the program, but is there anything in terms of us updating our existing language to make sure to the situation you talked about that we have some clarity in there?
I mean, I think if we do a program like this,
Mhm.
it would be triggered at the site of the development,
Okay.
which is not the site of the sidewalk under this program. I think the hypothetical problem I mentioned
Mhm.
could be addressed by just looking at where we think we might want sidewalks and making sure the right of way is there. And maybe before we put the program in place, look at like 10 streets that we might want to do it.
Okay. All right. So we'll just keep it at that. Any other questions from the council? Any from the public? Public, come on, public.
Dean Moore, Rayford Trail. I was at that planning and zoning meeting, Madam Mayor, and Amy Medford came up with this idea. I think it's a great idea. That street currently doesn't have any sidewalks. I believe the property across the street is zoned for townhomes. At that time, of course, we want them to put sidewalks in for that and the future of the Friendship Forest in case there's ever any access to or an easement to get into the park. We want people to be able to walk down Smith Street and get there safely without being on the street. And Larry's correct in a lot of these streets, Pecan and throughout that area. We looked at that back in 2010 with the Active Living Initiative, and all the groups that went out looking at it determined that we probably would never put sidewalks there. But anywhere in the city, we do need them. This would be a big help. It helps us not incur future expenses to improve our infrastructure. So I think it's a good idea to have this fund in place. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other comments from the public? All right. Hearing none, this will be on the agenda next week, not consent.
And yes, not consent. We'll need to have a public hearing.
Right. Okay. And we'll move on to. Yeah. Miller Thorne. Okay. All right. The next one is E, which is to discuss a resolution approving.
I was gonna say, the applicant is online if you would like to hear from him.
Oh, okay. All right. And I can't see.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
If you could speak a little louder.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my apologies for not being able to make it in person. But yes, we're applying for this variance because, like we were stating, it's a dead end road and we don't have sidewalks on either side of us. And just a little bit of background on our project is I'm a member of a church. It's called Stone Creek Church in Milton, Georgia. And one of our ministry partners has been gifted the opportunity to have that she does ministry in the city of Clarkston. And she's been given the opportunity for us to build her a home at cost for her to be able to live out of and then do her ministry that she does in Clarkston. And so part of the reason for what we wanted to apply for this variance was to try to, be a good steward of the donation that was given to us in order to build this home for them. So that was part of our consideration in applying for this variance. I just wanted to make that comment known to you guys as part of your consideration.
Okay. And thank you for sharing that information with the council. We appreciate that. With that, we'll have to have this as an agenda item. It can't be consent because we'd have to have a variance hearing on this one. We'll now move to item E, which is to discuss a resolution approving a conditional use permit to allow a drive-through facility at 4540 East Ponce de Leon Avenue, parcel ID 18-142-01089. Mr. Edwards.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So on this one, this is the old KFC Taco Bell restaurant that closed in 2020. That facility did have a drive-through that was active and allowed to be used for that use there. However, DBA Tacos, which recently opened in 2024, now falls under the non-conforming status of the drive-through facility because it's a use that is non-conforming that has been discontinued for a period of greater than 6 months. So staff was not able to approve them to reopen the drive-through at this time. And as you all do recall, at the March 4th, 2025 City Council meeting, City Council did approve a text amendment that allowed for the submittal of conditional use permits for drive-through and drive-in facilities only in the NC2 zoning district. And so with that, this applicant has submitted and staff is recommending approval of this conditional use of permit for a drive-through facility at 4540 East Ponce de Leon Avenue. And the Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended approval of this conditional use permit application.
All right, and we have the applicant. Are there any questions? None? Okay, I think we're good. This one. Okay. Can this one be consent? No, you can't do consent because it's a hearing.
Correct.
Right. Okay. We'll see you next week. Okay. All right. No problem. And we'll move on to the next one, which is to discuss a resolution approving a change order to Magnum Paving resurfacing contract for an additional resurfacing of 3 roads approved by the Georgia Department of Transportation Local Maintenance and Improvement Grant 2025 program in the amount of $187,071.88 to be funded out of SPLOST 2. And Mr. Kaiser.
Magnum Paving is the contractor that was hired by the council 2 months ago. They have completed 95% of the resurfacing work. They are about ready to leave the city. Before they leave, I gave them these 3 roads. In accordance with our contract language, we can increase or decrease quantities for the same unit prices for asphalt, milling work, etc. So I gave them the 3. I said, apply your unit prices to these 3 roads. They said, okay. And they'll come back in, provided council approves this next week. They'll be back in the following week to finish those 3 roads. So that's the change order for Magnum Paving.
Okay. Are there any questions for the council on this item? Hearing none from the public. Okay. All right. Would you like this one on consent? Okay, consent. All right. Consent. And we'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. We'll move on to discuss a resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement between the DeKalb County Housing Authority and the City of Clarkston for the joint provision of affordable housing services in the City of Clarkston. Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this item traces back to the approval that the City Council gave a little over a year ago for a project at 1086 Montreal that was financed by the DeKalb County Housing Authority. So that authority has jurisdiction in unincorporated DeKalb, and then with the city's consent within the cities of DeKalb, they requested the city to consent, and the concern was raised at the time that the financing method that the housing authority uses makes the property untaxable for a period of, in this case, 15 years. So some calculations were done, and the mayor negotiated with the executive of the housing authority, and it was agreed that the housing authority would pay the city $90,000 per year, but not just a payment to the city, a payment into our existing housing Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which has the same, overlapping purposes as the Housing Authority of DeKalb County. And so then following up on that, I've worked with the attorney for the Housing Authority to come up with an intergovernmental agreement where we will jointly provide affordable housing services within the city of Clarkston, and that'll be administered by the city through the existing trust, and the Housing Authority will pay $90,000 per year for 15 years during the fourth quarter of each year to fund in part that program.
Is there any questions or comments? No? Yes.
Have we thought about, what are we calling, I get it, it's the affordable housing plan, but we have developers in our city that are $300,000, $400,000. Are we gonna put a cap on the amount of house that we are dealing with here? Because even if we have a housing plan and the houses are $400,000, what are we gonna do with that?
Sure,
Because the
good.
people here don't have that type of income.
Right. Well, so if the people in the community can't afford it, then it's not affordable. The Affordable Housing Trust exists and has at least $200,000 in its bank account. The Affordable Housing Trust is a separate legal entity from the city of Clarkston. However, its organizational document is set up where the city manager of the city of Clarkston administers the trust funds. In order for the city manager to perform that function, the city manager needs for the city council to first adopt the affordable housing plan. Right now, the trust document says in very general terms that it'll be used for affordable housing purposes such as repairing single-family homes, helping with down payments on single-family homes, rental assistance, and utility assistance, which would also apply to multifamily residences. Essentially, the details that would guide the granting of these funds to beneficiaries are yet to be established. The city council is the entity that will set those rules. So the concern that you raised and any others can and should be addressed in that plan that we've yet to adopt.
And to that point, I know that Councilwoman Hood has been working on that because she's also part of the housing committee. And so she's been focused on providing that to present it back to the council for consideration of that one. All right, any questions?
Is there, sorry, Madam. So is there, my understanding is back when this was adopted, I think in 2018, there was some kind of a housing strategy. Is that different than the plan? Or do we have an existing plan that we
Yes.
didn't enact?
So, well, I think I would, to answer your second question, yes, it's definitely different because the affordable housing plan is more narrow in scope than the housing strategy, which I think encompasses all kinds of housing. More particularly, if I'm recalling correctly, and this was, 7 years ago, I believe that the city council rejected the housing strategy that was proposed by a consultant that the city hired. I could turn out to be wrong about that, and I apologize if I am, but that's my recollection of what occurred. I think Mr. Carroll was on the council then. Right. Well, it was not adopted. Yes. Yeah. That's consistent with my recollection. And frankly, that document it had a lot of statistics and some, right, very loose. What we need in this instance is a very specific set of criteria that the city manager can look at and then follow that up using the criteria and awarding significant amounts of money to people. So it needs to be, detailed and locked in.
All right. Any other questions? Any from the public? So with this one. Yep. So consent. Okay. There you go. All right, we'll move on to item H, which is to discuss establishing a truck route ordinance with Councilman Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So real brief background. There have been several incidents in a few neighborhoods where we've had large semi trucks go down residential streets that have on multiple occasions knocked out power and internet and phone infrastructure for, depending on the severity of it, various amounts of time. They've also knocked down actual poles, some of the utility poles. The most recent one resulted in a piece of a roof of a trailer hanging for several days, actually maybe close to a week, I forget the exact timeline, from some of the power lines. And so what this would do is update our code. Right now, our code addresses parking your trailer. So, it dictates where you can and cannot park a trailer overnight. It doesn't designate official truck routes. And so what this does is it creates some clear guidelines around where large tractor trailers can go. And we've got some updates on that as well. But I'll entertain questions from the council if anyone has questions, and then ask Mr. Kaiser to come up and share a little bit as well. So.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Kaiser?
Yeah.
Take it away for us.
And I'll give a real brief intro on this. So the draft ordinance that you have, left it open for some discussion on it as well. Mr. Kaiser was right in the middle, I think, of a major grant deadline, and so was able to get some really valuable feedback on it. So I'll let him sort of share just the updates to the document that y'all have as a part of the agenda packet and his recommendations on it.
I don't have that from you, but I'll just go over very briefly.
If you could turn the mic on. Thank you.
There we go. Okay. Yes, I do not have that in front of me, so I'll just go off of memory on what I did this afternoon. So Councilman Perkins is correct. The ordinance is rather vague, actually non-existent about truck routes in the city. Every city does a little bit different. Every county does a little bit different in terms of gross vehicle weights of vehicles, of trucks. In this city, there are very few roads that would qualify for truck restrictions. I call them oversized vehicle restrictions, truck route restrictions in terms of what road you can use and not use. In this city, we have most probably a handful that I have in the table that Councilman Perkins has, where we would allow trucks to utilize these routes if they are. There's a couple loads here. One is 26,000 pounds, and the other is my recommendation, 34,000 pounds in terms of weight restrictions. So if you have 6 or 7 roads where trucks can come down off of the interstate and utilize up to that weight amount, then that should be permissible. Then you classify all the other roads as residential, and then those routes would not be allowed for heavy trucks, tractor trailers, lowboys, etc., unless there was a specific reason, such as delivery of construction equipment, furniture, etc. And those are only for in and out kind of situation. So that does happen. So you can't restrict all trucks on every residential street, but if they have a purpose for being there, you have to allow them to be there. You can't stop them from coming in. So I think every government has that same kind of ordinance. And all I did was just tweak some of it. It has definitions about what gross vehicle weight is. It has definitions about what length of trucks are allowed. We define about, I think it was Councilman Perkins, we talked about 8 roads we have in there. I had a few additions.
Yep.
So those major roads are called arterial roads, and those roads would be East Ponce, parts of Montreal Road, North Indian Creek, Church Street, parts of Church Street, not all, parts of Church Street, Park North Boulevard, Glendale. There's about 7 or 8 of them, I believe, total, where trucks would be allowed to utilize those roads up to 34,001 pound. And so that's basically what we're talking about here. And there's a lot of detail to it that we'll go through as Richard and I and Councilman go through the edits over the next couple of days, and we'll have a cleaner copy hopefully in the next couple of days or so.
Councilman Carroll?
So one comment I saw, I think this maybe is Stephen's notes, that I think the height restriction makes sense as well, because if we're concerned about them taking out power lines and things like that, hitting trees, that type of thing, it seems like a height restriction as well as weight. It's possible to very low slung truck would not be as bad as a smaller truck that was lighter.
It is in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it is
Just
in
want
the
to make sure, because I
updated
just
version.
saw the version that I have, didn't have it, but that's want to make sure that's in the final version.
Yeah.
I have a few more definitions that we added here this afternoon.
Madam Mayor, I'll just summarize some of the changes in the updated document, and I'll send this to y'all once you have a chance to go through it and kind of pull everybody's comments into a single one. And so there's an update on the weight. So the weight recommendation is 34,000 pounds instead of 26,000. There's some clarification on restricted routes, definitions around oversized vehicles, length and height are also included in that. So one is just really clearly defining what type of vehicle we are referring to. The second is, so in the original list of roads, I included some collectors and some other streets that I was pretty sure some of our businesses were using for deliveries. You know, I think some of them might be accessible from Indian Creek, but I wanted to make sure we didn't inadvertently include a street or exclude a street from permissible truck routes that would prevent, say, a grocery store from getting their deliveries. There's only a few that aren't on the main arterials. And so what Mr. Kaiser has done is consolidated those to a single list and then pulled some of the collectors off. You'll have a total list of those as well in the updated version. And then on the final update, it's just clarifying penalties and just establishing a little bit more of a process for that, and a special, also a special permit process as well.
Okay. And any other questions from the council on this? Okay. All right, from the public? Okay, so I guess we'll have it tweaked by next Tuesday, or is that the plan?
I think the original one came from Mr. Quinn.
Well,
or from Richard.
Modifications. Yeah, and I made some comments. So I saw Larry's email today. I didn't actually get a chance to dive into the document. I think we can get this done by next week.
Okay. All right. We'll have it on the agenda then. Okay. And I guess the only other question I had is, typically when you have a large, like if someone was moving in, what's typically that size of, like if you're moving like a four bedroom house, you know, that kind of thing?
So you have trucks, single axle.
Mhm.
You have tractor trailers, dual axles. You have low boys for moving construction equipment. And so the largest truck mover is basically a single axle. It's a single axle truck. You may have 3 axles, but they're single axle and not doubles. And so those are typically about 45 to 50 feet, the longest ones. We allow from there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of situations that might exist where you have to have a dual axle, 72-foot long tractor trailer come in on these freight roads, freight loud roads, where you have to deliver something very heavy. I mean, just from a construction standpoint, if you are paving a residential street and you have a low boy and you have a steel wheeled roller and another piece of equipment on that, those are 65 to 70 feet in length. And those have to be allowed, obviously, on certain situations. So the moving trucks are about 45 to 50 feet in length.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll, yes, Vice
Well,
Mayor Johnson.
When assessing the weight, was it taken into consideration the maximum weight of a tractor trailer that was delivering to a grocery store? Because the 34 is not, that's not a good number because their capacity is 43,000 pounds. If the trailer is full.
Yes, those are, so we are talking about a dual axle. You can ask for a special permit, which is why I put in the ordinance, where if there is a need to bring something heavier than that in, then they have to apply for a special permit and a fee associated with that permit. So we don't want tractor trailers even running on the freight allowed roads if they're over 34,000 pounds, unless they get a permit to do so.
We're in the middle of Tucker. We're in the middle of, if there's something going on and they get off on 78 to get somewhere in Stone Mountain, they have to pass through. If we're adhering to the ordinance, we're gonna give them a ticket. But they're doing their job because they gotta go through. There's no other way to 78 before you get to blah, 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 that type of thing. What happens then? We have to trouble staff with an exception.
So,
Councilman Perkins.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, no, that's a good question. So just to clarify, this limit only applies to the restricted routes. And so those vehicles, if they're coming through the city, if they're going down any of the main arterials, they would be fine. Even the restricted weight only apply. We just need to define, specific height and weight requirements for vehicles that might go down Smith Street or something like that. So wait a second, we don't want, obviously a large tractor trailer to do that. So, but yeah, does that clarify the question? Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we look forward to the resolution or the ordinance next Tuesday. Thank you all.
Thank
And
you.
I did ask the public if they had any questions. Public? Okay. All right, we'll move on to I, which is to discuss requiring the city to have an option to receive all payments electronically and to have an option to make all payments electronically by July 1st, 2025. Councilman Carroll.
Yes, so this agenda item originated out of, there was one particular business that owed a check for a bond to the city, and the city could not take that payment electronically. And so the person had to physically come and deliver the check, and a few times the person that was there to receive, they were supposed to receive the check, was not there to receive it. So they literally were not able to pay the city money for several days at a time, and that delayed everything. And by the same side of things, the city currently mails out checks, I understand, for a lot of payments. Checks get lost in the mail. The mail nowadays takes several weeks sometimes even to deliver things within Metro Atlanta. So it's just not a reliable or quick method of making payments. And so this is not saying that every payment has to be made and received electronically. If somebody wants to bring in a check or wants to receive a paper check, they still could. But what it's saying is that there has to be at least an option for someone that wants to pay something to the city electronically to pay it electronically, or if they want to receive a payment that they're due, for example, a contractor or something like that, they should have the option to receive it electronically. And it doesn't require that take place till July 1st, 2025 to give the city some time to adapt its systems. But ultimately, I think that this will be better because it saves paperwork. Because right now, if you have to write out a check, you have to physically input that into the accounting software versus if you just make the payment electronically, most software systems will automatically input that payment. Same thing with receiving a payment. If you receive a payment electronically, it gets automatically inputted versus if you get a check, you have to deposit. Again, it's more work to physically input that.
Mhm.
So I think that this will be an improvement in the long run and hopefully bringing the city into the 21st century of electronic payments.
All right, thank you, Councilman
have a
Carroll. I'm gonna ask the new day 2 of our new city manager. Your thoughts on this?
Yes, ma'am. I did talk with the interim finance director. Currently, we do not have the software infrastructure to put electronic payment and systems in place. One of the things we want to do is to consult with our current financial software provider, which is RDA, to see if the software that we currently have will allow for that form of application. Additionally, we want to make sure that the software, if it does not have the capability, can integrate with another another platform that we may be able to engage with. The goal overall is to make sure that we don't have multiple systems in place across the organization. So we do want to look at consolidating, being able to consolidate processes and capability across different departments where we don't have one piece of software over here and another over there.
Okay. So given the timeline, is that going to work for you?
We will not know until we talk with RDA. If our current systems can provide for it, we may be able to meet that deadline. If not, then we'll have to look at additional vendors who may be able to either replace the current platform that we have or integrate.
Okay, and Vice Mayor Johnson.
My question is, I have one for Jamie and one for the city manager. Jamie, we talked about this several times. Is there a reason why we're bringing it up and not leaving it in the hands of the administrative staff?
Yeah, because I brought it before and nothing got done.
Well,
So-
we've been going through some things and we do have a new city manager. So are you getting a grave response from the community
So-
that
so
this is an
there-
inconvenience?
I have gotten complaints.
I said a lot.
Yes. So I'm willing to be flexible in the timeline, like July 1st is not written in stone. So, you know, if it needs to be August 1st, needs to be September 1st, I'm not going to be like crying and screaming, but there needs to be a strict deadline of when this needs to be completed, you know, because it doesn't take, you know, forever to do new software. I understand it takes time. So I'm willing to say, hey, if you need this to be August 1st, you need this to be September 1st, that's okay. But I'm not willing to just say it can be forever in the future. It needs to be a set deadline that needs to be done by.
Okay.
Okay,
Council-
and my last, you wanted to ask.
Yeah, I do want to say another consideration is whether or not any change in software has been budgeted. So we will need an opportunity to make sure, you know, the route we need to take and to determine any costs associated with that.
Okay,
And my question is to you, Ms. Miller Thornton. Is this something that you need us to do? I mean, is this normally how this is done? Or do you handle these things And then I'm just asking from we're government. We should not mandate how you guys operate internally because we don't know everything that go into those operations. We have several different departments. We have court, we have several. And they don't use the same systems. So when I called courts, they have a fee of 3%. Miss June has a fee of 3.5%. Records has a fee of $3 or something like that. So we have several, and then with courts, I don't know, but certain things you cannot pay for electronically. So if we're dealing with one aspect of the government offices, I get it. Everything that's handled administratively, permits, that type of thing, we could probably put a deadline on that. But certain departments have different reasonings behind taking cash or behind not taking credit cards. And then this community, that little 3.5% or $3 here or there, you got a speeding ticket for $700, that can be a burden. And we haven't, I'm just saying, but.
Well, I think you misunderstand. I'm not saying it has to be electronic. I'm just saying there has to be an option for it to be electronic. So if they want to pay with a check, they still can.
So
It's
is
not
that on the
forbidden.
administrative side of the permitting and those type
Yeah,
of things?
so all this is saying
So-
is there has to be an option to pay electronically, not they have to pay electronically.
Right, okay,
So I'm not taking away the option to pay paper check or cash if you want to.
okay. Councilwoman Bell?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So just to give you, Ms. Miller Thornton, you just got here 2 days in, right? So we're gonna give you grace on it. What I want to tell you is that we've been having the same discussion since 2018, right? And so I understand Councilmember Kara's perspective as well as Vice Mayor Johnson's perspective. However, I advise them that I don't want to see no more paper. That's why we only get this one piece of paper. That's what you can send beside your leg, right? But that is because our whole building is gonna burn up if somebody strike a match outside because we got so much paper. We've been here for 2 days. I bet your office is full of paper, right? Nothing is digitized. When people transition, we can't ever find anything. But as it relates to digital payment, that should be an option. It should have been.
Right.
It's an inconvenience to have to even come up here all the time to even make a payment, and it
Mhm.
should be an option, and we should be making sure that we find the cost-effective system and platform. Now, I think there may have been assessment of all the tools that we used during the pandemic because the world was shut down. That is something that we asked for. So it may not even be something that you have to reinvent the wheel for. You just have to find it. Yeah, it's gonna be a challenge.
Yes, ma'am.
However, it may be already there, and we need to have one system because I think it's one system that they all can use and go in based on courts or records or whatever the case may be and put their percentile of charge and fee. But it should be an option because we don't want people to be on travel, whatever the case may be, right? Miss a court date and now they have this extensive fee and not even a warrant because we don't even have that option. So I do think that's something to take into consideration. I understand Councilman Carroll's need for urgency. I don't know that July is as feasible or as possible as we would like it to be. However, I think a lot of the grunt work has already been done. We just need to identify the platform and how it can integrate across the department to at least have an accessibility. Because for me, this is about accessibility and connectivity to the city, right? Working for them. And so I definitely think that we should move forward with this timeline, taking into consideration since Councilman Carroll is being flexible with us. But I do think we should move on to very diligently.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So, I think for right now, in terms of the need for it, we'll turn to you to kind of do the assessment and let us know in the midst of you prioritizing everything on day 2 of being here. So is that good for everyone?
Yeah, if you can just let us know what date you think it's feasible to get it done by. I'm willing to be flexible. Like I said, I'm not going to make some impossible task to distract you from doing those things you have to do. But I do think that this needs to have there does need to be a drop dead date at some point, just a reasonable time in which the city has electronic options for everything.
So also remember, we gotta prioritize all the stuff she just got in.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm saying
All
if it
right.
needs to be like September, October, or something. Like
Okay,
that,
all
that's
right.
fine.
I appreciate you, Councilman Carroll. Thank you for bringing this up. Okay, Councilman Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one more thing to add. And I think as Mr. Quee brought up the, this fitting into several larger systems. I think this is an important piece of moving forward a much larger conversation to the mayor's point on prioritization. And I believe Councilwoman Bell also made this point. A lot of the efficiency issues that we have as, a governing body and just administratively are due to things being, printed on a piece of paper. I think we found out last year that we don't have a PO systems in place. And so I believe, can't remember exactly who told us that. I think it was our former finance director mentioned we didn't have that. So we have contracts out that we didn't even know where the payments were on it. And so I think this is a part of a larger problem that I think needs to be a high priority. And if we can solve it, I think it's going to clear up a lot of people's margin to be able to work on other issues as well. So I'm similar as Councilman Carroll, obviously I'm, I'm very flexible on the date, the specific deadline, but because this has been an ongoing issue and touches multiple aspects of the city's just ability to function. My hope is that we can kind of give you all like a real clear deadline and, that we can work towards instead of they can continue to get kicked down the road. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any comments from the public?
Yes, we have one person
Yes.
signed up.
Who signed up?
Susie Keys.
Oh, all right.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, City Manager. I work with court services. Okay. All honesty, the courts cannot go totally electronic. 3.59% is what our credit card company charges. We do not incur that fee. They does. If a judge dismisses a case, most of the time, if they pay for the card, they expect for us to give them that 3.59% back, but we don't. We only give them whatever the cost of the ticket is. Also, we cannot use a credit card to bond someone out of jail. They have to pay cash because most of the time, what they're doing is they're putting the bond money up just to have them released, not to say that they can use that money to pay for their citation. Every once in a while they can, but even when We tell them, oh, your ticket is $153, but if you use a card, there's an extra 3.95%, which is going to be $159.04. And they go, okay, I'll be back. I'm going to get cash because they don't have that extra money to give away. And I understand and I get that. And here lately, a lot of people don't have insurance on their cars. So that ticket has gone since $550. So you imagine 3.59% on that citation. So most of them, when they come to court, they says, can I have more time? And so the judge will reward them 30 days or 60 days to give them more time to get the money to pay, because most people don't have that type of money to just throw away. So also, apart from all of that, sometimes people say, well, I don't have the money. So the judge might even give them community service. And some of them go on probation, whereas that they still got to pay that extra $40 to probation every month. So it's not going to be set right for court to go totally electronic. In the past, since I've been here this year, make 20 years that I've been here, that if I put your ticket on my card and you don't want to pay me back, that's all right. You ain't got to pay me back. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm calling my credit card company up and deny the charge. We have had chargebacks in the past on cards. So you have to think about all of the different options that you have when you're making this type of decision. And I understand that you want to go totally electronic. I understand that a lot of people is sick and tired of paper, but some things have to have a paper trail. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, so I think I must not have been that clear because it's not totally
Well,
electronic, right?
Councilman,
Well, I feel like
no,
I've been
no,
having
no,
to
no,
do
no,
that
no,
because people are saying
no,
it's
no,
true.
no. I get that. We asked the public to speak. She spoke. We got a different perspective. We'll take that in. And as we're evaluating it, we'll take all of those into consideration. Any other people from the public? Yes.
I just want to say, we have identified over the last couple of days, some of the things that we do need to have in place, like a purchase order system. So what I can commit to tonight is that at the April work session, we will have a plan forward. Does that work?
Yep. We want to make sure this is day 2.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You figure out what you need to do and prioritize and everything. But you already had a list of things that you need to take care of. So take care of those things.
Yes, ma'am.
And if with that, any other comments? If not, let's adjourn this meeting. I'll take a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. All right, motion passed. Meeting adjourned. See you next Tuesday.